Welcome back to my idiom classroom. Today I'll be continuing my series of American idioms for my AESL 563 class for spring 2020. I'm going to be going over select idioms from chapter 24 in the book English for Everyone, English Idioms. Ready? Let's chit-chat. This week's idioms will be about talking. The first idiom I want to go over today is talk the talk. This is an interesting idiom because you're repeating the verb and the noun, talk the talk. What it means is to talk in a convincing way, and it can be used in any kind of situation, business, home, school, talk the talk. Another idiom that goes very well with it is walk the walk. And walk the walk is just like talk the talk in that you have your verb and your noun, but here we're talking about action. So talking the talk is about speaking your truth, and walking the walk is about doing your truth. Walk the walk means to act in the same way that you say you will act. So let's take a look at an example. A good leader can't just talk the talk. He also has to walk the walk as well. So what this sentence would mean is that you should do what you say you're going to do. We have another kind of phrase that people also use. This is bonus, which is do what I say, not what I do. And we don't want to do that. We want to actually walk or do the same things that we say we're going to do. So talk the talk and walk the walk. These are idioms that can be used in almost any kind of situation. The next idiom that we're going to be looking at is to talk big. So talk big means to exaggerate or to brag. And usually this has a negative connotation, that we're exaggerating, we're making something better than it should be or bigger than it should be. Another idiom that goes very well with this from our chapter is to spin a yarn. Spin a yarn is very interesting. Most of us live on farms and have sheep and shear the sheep and take the wool and turn it into yarn all of ourselves and then knit a sweater and wear our clothes. Normally we just go to the store and buy our clothes. So spinning, taking wool and turning it into yarn to make something out of, is kind of a forgotten art, although they do it in factories. So to spin a yarn, if you think about it, it means to take information, a bunch of information, and pull the biggest part out and tell a story. However, they're not just regular stories. They're funny or exaggerated stories, bigger than life stories. So sometimes when we're talking big, we're also spinning yarns. Here's an example. My grandpa talks big about his fishing trips. He can really spin a yarn. And if we look at this picture, we can see the man is showing you how large the fish was. It's a giant fish, but really the fish is hanging on the wall, so it's much smaller than he's saying. So he's telling the story, he's exaggerating the size of the fish, he's talking big. And again, we can use both of these idioms in almost any kind of situation. You could talk big about your job or your family or the situation in the world. You could spin a yarn. So these are two good idioms that you can use. Another great idiom that I really like is the next one, and what it is to talk down. Now, talk down is interesting, and before we start with talk down, let's add a bonus idiom, which is talk up. To talk up means to promote or again exaggerate, make someone bigger than they are or better than they are, or to praise somebody. To talk up. And then if we look at the very next one, which is talk down, it means to patronize, which is a great verb. If you're not aware of this verb, patronize, or condescend is another great verb. And condescend means almost exactly the same thing as patronize. Both of these mean to treat someone as lesser. Another example from the book is to treat in someone or something in a seemingly kind way or nice way, but you're actually demeaning that person. For example, you are saying, oh, you're doing such a great job, in such a way that makes it seem like you're not doing a great job. You're patronizing. Or when you're telling somebody how to do something basic, this could be considered patronizing. Our example here are two pigeons with hats, and the pigeon in the baseball hat is asking the pigeon with the degree, the cap that you wear when you graduate, the scholarly pigeon, what are other words for condescending? So other words for condescending are patronizing, and we see that. And then we have a bunch of adjectives: snooty, superior, snobbish, supercilious, disdainful, lofty, haughty, arrogant, and stuck up. And these are all words to describe someone who is in fact condescending to you. They all have negative connotations. The most aggressive one, I think, or the strongest one, is arrogant. When we talk about arrogance, we're usually talking about someone who's aggressively condescending or actively condescending, whereas stuck up and snooty and snobbish and superior, these could be adjectives that someone just feels or comes across. They're not verbs. So we have talk down. Another idiom in this chapter that goes very nicely with talk down could be talk shop. Now, unlike talk down, which is negative, talk shop is neutral. To talk shop just simply means to have a conversation about your job or your situation. So if you're a stay-at-home mom or you're homeschooling your kids right now, you could be talking shop on Zoom with other moms. So even though it's not really a job like a shop, it's still talking shop just means basically talking about what you're doing. And that is, in fact, neutral. So if we put these two together and an example sentence, we get, Stan always talks down to me when we talk shop. This would be a case when I'm talking to someone about my job or my situation, and he always patronizes me, or he condescends to me, or he's trying to make me feel stupid. These are two great idioms. Again, that could be used right now in almost any situation: home, business, life, scholarly, talk down, and talk shop. The next idiom that we have is to strike up a conversation. And to strike up a conversation means to start a conversation. That's all it means, start a conversation. Now notice that strike is actually an irregular verb. So unlike regular verbs that end in ed, strike does not. Strike, actually, our participle is struck. So he struck up a conversation yesterday. Or if we were using the perfect tense, he has struck up a conversation with many people. And it just means to start a conversation. It's easy to remember because strike and start actually start with an S. So you could just as easily use start a conversation. It just is an idiomatic way to say it. Then we have to make small talk. Now, I'm sure everybody's heard about small talk. And usually when you have small talk, we don't use any other verb but make. So you make small talk. Make is also irregular, and the past tense of make is made. To make small talk simply means to have polite conversation about non-important things. So non-important things could be how you doing, how's the weather, how's the traffic. We're not going to go into the deep details of our personal lives when we're talking about small talk. Let's look at an example sentence with both of these together. One way to strike up a conversation is to make small talk with someone. So here we have both idioms in a sentence telling us that when we're out there meeting people and trying to get to know someone, we make small talk. And you can use these anytime you're talking with someone. And it doesn't have to be a stranger. You can even make small talk with someone you know. It's just a kind of polite conversation. Both of these are positive or neutral connotation. The next idiom, however, is negative, and it is talk your ear off. And that's kind of a fun idiom to look at. Someone talks so much that our ear falls off. It just means talk a lot. It doesn't necessarily have to be at a negative, because if someone is just very talkative, which is an adjective who means talks a lot, then you could just say he talks my ear off. But generally, if your ear's falling off, it's negative. So this has more of a negative connotation. An idiom that goes very well with it is be a loudmouth. And a loudmouth is always negative connotation. So if I say to you that you're a loudmouth, that means you talk a lot, but you talk a lot in an irritating way. You're causing trouble. So talking a lot in and of itself isn't necessarily bad, but if you're a loudmouth, that is negative, and it is not a compliment. It's rather insulting. So here is an example about Stan, good old Stan who's patronizing me, talking down to me. Stan was talking my ear off all day. He is such a loudmouth. So if I just said Stan was talking my ear off all day, it's more neutral to a little bit negative. But the minute I say he is such a loudmouth or he is a loudmouth, then boom, Stan is a loudmouth. He's a negative person, and we know that, poor Stan, because on the previous slide he was talking down to me. Both of these idioms could be used any way you like. The next idiom is more positive, and it is speak your mind. Speak your mind means to say what you think about something or to tell someone what you think. Now, it can be positive and it can also be negative. This is an idiom that really depends on context, but to speak your mind generally means to be honest and forthright and outgoing with your words. An idiom that goes very nicely with that from the chapter is gift of gab. Now, gab is a noun that means kind of conversation, but we don't use it in that very many ways. It is, in fact, very idiomatic. So gift of gab we use. You can also sometimes use an adjective form and say that someone is gabby, but you're not going to hear that very often. Gift of gab, however, is absolutely used. You wouldn't put in here conversation. You wouldn't say gift of conversation. That would be weird. So if you're talking about talking with someone or talking confidently or speaking persuasively, then we would use gift of gab. And this is often used in sales kinds of situations, like if you're selling something. So if we look at an example sentence, we have Sue always speaks her mind because she was born with the gift of gab. In this case, both of these sentences are positive. You could, however, make it more negative if you said something like, Stan was talking down to me when he spoke his mind. So in that case, it would be negative. So it's very contextual, whether speak your mind is positive or negative. Gift of gab, however, is almost always considered positive. Because we are now doing all video, I've given you some practice if you'd like. This is new in this video series. If you'd like to practice with these 12 idioms, then you can. You could write some sentences. You could write a dialogue. I've given you both positive and negative idioms that you could use. If you do that, underline the idiom in the sentence so you can make sure you see it. Then you should read the sentence out loud. Practice them. Put them together. Remember, the only way to learn your idioms is to personalize them, to put them in your life, to use them in your conversation. I encourage everyone to do that and keep up the great work because you're all doing such a great job. We have a bonus idiom here. This is in the chapter. This is my cat, Nix. And the idiom here is don't let the cat get your tongue. So when a cat gets your tongue, then you're not able to speak. You are quiet. Your words are gone because the cat has taken your tongue. The last bonus idiom is shoot the breeze, and shoot the breeze just means converse. So I look forward to shooting the breeze again with you very soon with more idioms. I encourage you to keep practicing your English idioms. Work in your book, write dialogues, say them out loud. Don't let the cat get your tongue. All right, everybody, I will see you next time in Coleman's classroom for American Idioms. Have a great day.